Thank you so much for joining us. I'm super excited. Before we get started, I'm going to kick it off with really brief introduction. Antoine and Hassan are here today from Beiersdorf. I think we'll kick things off with a bit of an introduction, kind of back up a step, and really get to know the company behind the brands that you probably all know, use, and love. I think it's really interesting to have a conversation around centers of excellence as change makers, as transformation agents. This is really a topic that we see EMEA and Europe excelling in, really having that North Star for strategy, for operational excellence, really understanding what it takes to meet markets, meet brands where they are. And so that's the conversation we're going to drive into, the transformational work you're doing at your company, and how we all can learn from the growth that you're driving at Beiersdorf. So with that said, I do want to start. I think we all know Eucerin, NIVEA, Prairie, but we might not know the engine behind it. Can you set the stage for us a little bit, Antoine, with the Beiersdorf story, size, scale? Tell us a little bit about the business.
Sure. First, thanks for having us. Lovely to be there with you. As you can sound, I'm not German. Beiersdorf is a German company that with a lot of brands that you guys are using every day, but perhaps you never heard the name Beiersdorf. So obviously NIVEA is huge for us, Eucerin, but also Labello, Hansaplast, and more luxury brands like Shanghai or Prairie. So if you look under your seat right now, you all have a little La Prairie. No, there's no La Prairie stuff distributed today. We are not allowed to. So this is mainly on skincare and other products, and the brand is 110 years old, with a strong history of innovation, including in advertising, funny enough, in the first one to do advertising on buses and trucks back in the 50s and so on. So it's a long history that has been doing some changes across the years. So it's about 20,000 people working in Beiersdorf, 10 billion in revenue across the group, so fairly large group, but smaller than big other players. Some of them are French. French are the worst. So yeah.
Well, you talk about the size, the scale, but also the portfolio. The product suite is actually a bit smaller, right, than competitors. So really focused portfolio of brands within the Beiersdorf family. Hassan, can you talk to us, where's the company today? What's on your mind? What are the trajectory, the goals of the business?
So also, thank you very much for having us here today. I would say Antoine really summarized it really well in terms of where we started out, but where are we going? I'd say categories are playing a key role for us. Like you said, we have a very focused, let's say, portfolio of products, or not of brands, sorry, but products are very wide range. So we look at categories as our brand, so to speak. So body, face care, face cleansing, hand care, sun care, deo is a big chunk as well. So I'd say where we're going is obviously face. Yep. Face is the king, let's say, in terms of the market right now. And we're definitely pushing a lot of boundaries when it comes to innovations there. There's a lot of really cool launches that we did, like this year, the whole epigenetics launch on NIVEA, but last year already on Eucerin. So a serum that basically makes your skin look, I don't know how many years younger, Flo, I think 5 years younger. So 5 years younger is something definitely for us as a game changer in the market. So I hope that you all get to go to the stores and get to buy those kinds of products, but for sure face care is where we're focusing. And it's also evidently enough where creator marketing is as well, so that's why it goes hand in hand.
It is, yeah. We're seeing a ton of growth in the skincare space globally, and your brands are performing really well there. We saw double-digit growth across at least 3 of the major players within your portfolio, including Eucerin, NIVEA, and La Prairie, which is really impressive, again, in a very competitive and high-growth category. I think looking at changes that you're trying to make, where you're going in the future, and the focus you're applying to the business, talk to me about the transition that you are making as a company to really get the organization as a whole behind and around creators. Creators is a real central part of your strategy. This is a very intentional move and something that you are driving from a center of excellence approach. So walk me through that transition from, say, precision marketing, which was the 2-year effort, into this next multi-year, multi-million-dollar transformation.
Yeah, sure. Maybe I can start and then Antoine also chip in. But for sure, I'd say for us, the mindset shift that we had is to not be condescending, let's say, from a global standpoint to the rest of the markets. Because in the market is where influencer marketing and creator marketing is happening. Like that's where the campaigns and markets are going on, and everyone is doing it, and everyone has already been doing it in their own way. I'd say the first stage of that transformation is to make sure that we're all on the same ship together, going in the same direction. And we talked about the need of having like a North Star KPI, which for us, evidently now is EMV through our partnership, but there was a need for that, the navigation of that ship all together, so that we could scale it up and really take it to another level. Because when everything was done in silos and in short little like bursts, it would not last long, the same way like precision marketing would be today, social media marketing for everyone else. And how do we really get that driven through? And then as you start breaking down, let's say, the layers of that onion in terms of what do we need to do, what needs to come next, we started looking into how do we have global teams, how do we have partners such as yourselves, as well as other partners in terms of setting up within market and from a broader regional level. How do we then start getting upskilling through? So how can we all use the same terminology? What is an influencer? What are the tiers of influencers? So not everyone calling micro and macro things differently. So it was a whole journey that we're still on now. It's still very young. I'd say about a year old now, but definitely going to a whole new different level.
So a couple of things there that I want to dig into. One is, again, this idea of meeting everyone where they are and the role of your team specifically in that. Walk me through, what does that discovery process look like? How do you understand kind of the baseline across markets, across brands? And then what is your role in kind of building and pointing the ship in that direction?
Well, you need to, as any transformation, you need to find the right partners. It also, because very often it's very hard to do that transformation within the organization, just on its own. So whenever, if you compare it, you quite interesting stats from Chris in terms of where 15 years ago when Creator IQ was created, you see all these apps and so on that were there, and then we started to do advertising on Facebook and so on. But this needed a bit of organization, it took us a bit of time. And now everybody knows how to do it and so on. Now, influencer comes along. It's a complete new game. So we've been told for the last 10 years of the algos are ruling the world from an advertising standpoint. And now we suddenly have to get back to say, okay, actually we need to build a relationship with communities to promote your brand. And we sort of, okay, we went back from tech is talking to tech to now, okay, we need to get to people, but we need to organize it. So we did partner with the BCG, the Business Consulting Group, we have to help us at different levels, because you need to have the convincing at the top. You need, obviously, the board members to be buying it, the region, the markets, and also you need to do the work and pilot it on a very hands-on way. So we need that strategic partner. We need execution partners, and our job is more about making sure we have we collectively work to define what is success, what success looks like. Okay, so how do you define that? You know, we discuss EMV, but how do you, the many measures of what is the measure of success for influencer, and what do you use influencer for? You have to fight some, and that's getting the right, let's say, partners ecosystem, and then to help you transform, changing the job internally. We now have internally jobs like being precision influence manager. We have dedicated people in market that are doing the job, which is something that didn't exist a year ago. So that's of a company of 20,000 people across the world and operating in over 100 countries is not something you do quickly.
Overnight. But you have been moving at a rapid and very impressive pace. Why now? Why creator marketing? Why is Beiersdorf making this investment and accelerating at the pace that you are?
I would say just, first of all, that's what the data says. Like the data says go there. With any CMM that gets done, any research that we get doing, we see it ourselves. Like also sometimes as corporate company, you sometimes need to deal with it like a human being. And when you do look online, the reality is creator marketing, creator content is severely outweighing owned branded content right now. So how could we, let's say, play on that space is what we've always been kind of doing, But now is time where we're really shifting our mindset in terms of, is that space going to outweigh our own content and our own branded content? So it's a discussion that we always have, but at the end of the day, the real authenticity, credibility, all results when it comes to campaigns, whenever we even used to test, like, let's say, native creator content versus branded owned content, performs better in unison as well. So all the data really goes down that way. And there is always that business side of, you can create so much more with creator marketing at scale to address so many different pools of people versus having just maybe like just a one-off, let's say, shoot that we used to do 10 years ago. So.
Yep. I think so there's a signal there, a clear signal from the business, kind of an imperative, but still the role of, again, your teams collectively. We talked a little bit about education, enablement, right? This role of centers of excellence as enablers, internally and externally. What are some of the challenges? What have you had to re-educate on? I know when we were speaking originally, we talked about senior leaders ask simple questions. What questions do they ask? How can you answer them? And then maybe what can't you answer?
Yeah, in fact, you have to fight some misconception about influencers first. Because often you will say, okay, oh yeah, influencer, we need to do it. Yeah, it's for Gen Z. Like, okay, I'm not sure. So it's for Gen Z. It helps with conversion. That's all. And they're only interested in two brands. I think no. In fact, they're not for Gen Z. You even have like it covers the whole spectrum. Everybody is influenced, and you have to do those little things to say to leadership team and say, well, I'm not influenced myself. They say, yeah, you are. So when the last time are you maybe in the market for a car? Oh yeah, just check on YouTube that guy. So, yeah, that guy's influencer, you know. So, and he said, oh, when was the last time you buy a hair fryer? Oh, it's same. Yeah, I find this good brand. So yeah, it was promoted by influencers. So I think very understanding that everybody is exposed to influencers, no matter the age, and making them understand they're part of it. And you don't have to subscribe or to follow to be exposed. And then it's not just about conversion, because often they will say, yeah, it's good for e-com. I need it. And then you say, no, you build the brand. You are talking to people who are really building communities and trust. And no matter what you do, and this is, before that I did work on automotive and in creator economy, people buy from people. You have always that relationship where you need you trust someone. And therefore, if you need to convey the brand values, you need to find the right people to do so. So, and influencers are, for me, the way where marketing brings together. It's very hard, because over the last 10, 15 years, we've been absolute control freak in content and say, oh, we need to put the logo here or here, or maybe after 3 seconds, and so on. So we became ourselves like absolute control freak on what we put in our creative. And suddenly we have to say, by the way, this guy, he does great stuff. Let her or him doing his stuff is going to be amazing. Like, no. You have to say this, or you have to say that. So it's very hard to find that balance in terms of briefing, giving enough freedom so you are legitimate as a creator, and yet making sure you convey the right message for the brand. So it's been extremely difficult, and then you end up with very simple questions with how much do we spend? Okay, so super easy to say on Facebook. On Facebook, we know exactly, we go through media agencies and so on, we know. But on influencers, it's so delocalized. A lot of markets work locally with local agencies who are doing an amazing job, and you need that sense of understanding what the market is and who are the great influencers. But to know how much we spend, we haven't got a tech. We didn't have until now a tech that can tell us. Our president of NIVEA will say, amazing, how much did we spend? And we're like, maybe we think, and it's like, no. There is no maybe or we think. This is a huge part of our spend, which is now we are digital first, so most of our media, which is hundreds of millions of dollars spent every year, is digital. And now we see the influence part growing to 20-30% of that digital there. So Greta wants to know where our money goes.
With more opportunity comes more responsibility. It is. I think we talked earlier about the industry really growing up, and so the need for comparability, but also for true tracking of both inputs and outputs, right? That's how you like path to ROI, true ROI, because I do think we're moving from a felt sense, which is quite new, even that, like the felt sense that creators work, creator content works better, into the need to truly validate that for our businesses when we're talking about the investment levels that you're talking about. You mentioned your background in automotive, also luxury. Share us a little bit, where did you come from? What do you bring to Beiersdorf from your past lives?
Well, originally I come from a small island called Martinique in the Caribbean, but that's a different part of the world. And I did most of my career, I started a bit of fintech in France, then I spent most of my career then in automotive, working for Renault car, Renault, Dacia, Alpine in Formula One, and between the UK, France. And after that, I somehow moved to the other side, mostly in digital and marketing. Every time it was about transformation. Everything I did here in the UK or in France, it was about digital transformation. And then I moved to completely to creator economy, joining a company called Jelly Smack, which at the time was doing all the monetization for creators. So a new world. After me spending 15 years of the time in automotive, in advertising, I didn't realize how big a Mr. Beast is. And I was proud enough to have him as a client. And this is a complete eye-opening for me, even though I was in digital for some time. And what I'm trying to bring is to bring that experience to Beiersdorf and say, okay, these are two different worlds. You have the very heavily controlling brands that we've been educated like this, and even the platform played a big role in making us control freak. Is this huge community. We are not just people after brand deals. These are entrepreneurs that are doing monetization, brand deals, merchandising, creating their own line of products. So these are very clever entrepreneurs that we have to work with, and we should be. So what I'm bringing is more like, how do you shift a corporation of that size in a world that they barely know, and bringing the two together, and how tech is the link between the two that helps you keep the visibility.
And then Hassan, so you have now moved into a global role to take on precision influence. You are part of the media team, so we have representation across media, and then you report directly into the CDO. I think that coverage is actually quite interesting, marrying those pieces of the business into one, again, central North Star strategy. Talk to me a little bit about your role today, and then if you can share a bit about the summit that you just kicked off to really get the organization and your marketing teams globally behind this effort.
Yeah, sure. No, always a bit strange going through after my history, but it was for me kind of leading up to this point. This was my first global role, and I'd spent over almost 15 years basically in local markets where I'm originally from. So I'm Egyptian, so mostly in the Middle East, so in Egypt and in Dubai. And leading up to this point, I was kind of spanning across different roles, across digital, brand, so getting more commercial, and then into media as well. So that's how I basically got the job in global. Is I moved as head of digital and media for the Middle East and North Africa, where I was based in Dubai, and I still am, working remotely out of there for now. But basically, I joined the team to use all that expertise that we had from a local perspective, and how do we get media to marry into influencers. So my current role is being, let's say, the representative of the orchestrator of the whole transformation for precision influence from the media perspective. So working with all the enablers from all the different teams, many of them are here in the second row, representing all different teams and different functions. But also wearing my hat when it comes to leading social media platforms. So I'm also the lead on joint business plans, investments, and platform relationships with TikTok and Meta, which comes very, very handy when you're in charge of creator and influencer marketing as well, because you get to see and you get to influence what benefits can you get off of the platforms into influencer and creator marketing. How can you create more JBP relevant deliverables and incentives and let's say, credits for the markets in order to entice them and incentivize them to even invest more into creator and influencer marketing as well. So they go a bit hand in hand.
So a couple of things there. One is I think a lot of companies struggle with that kind of relationship between influencer and media. Talk to me a little bit about some of the unlocks there. Where do you find success, again, in really making influencer a part of that core strategy, where historically I think media has been much more kind of performance, planning, buying. I think that's something, again, that we're seeing both our brands and agency partners really try to figure out.
Yes. No, I think the big, like, let's say, thing that I'm always trying to unlock within the organization is to stop trying to have them siloed. So we always, even I think most of anyone who works like as a part of a corporation or company or a brand side would see that you always have different ways of allocating costs to different things. And influencer is different than social media marketing right now. So that's great, but then what if that piece of content is a piece of creator content? And these are the types of questions that we're asking now. So how can we drive the journey forward into that?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. It kind of gets back to the like senior leaders ask simple question points, which is the complexity of where creator content can show up, what creators can do in terms of solving problems for your business. That's very diverse and complex. And so even coming back to the cost tracking, it's like, where do you track that? Where does it go? We have to kind of rebuild our frameworks as we go. We talked a lot about the pace that you're moving, right? You're really building the plane as you fly it. What are some of the learnings that you've had along the way, both from creators as your teams get more steeped in the creator data, creator conversations, and then also from the change management, which I would argue is maybe just management at this point?
I'd say be humble, because as you rightly pointed, the coming up and say we need to do influence is like a lot of markets say, okay, sorry guys, but we're gonna wait for you. Thank you very much. So there's a very different level of maturity depending on markets on influence. And obviously with Beiersdorf, one of the key learnings is like top bottom doesn't work. You have to do it with the markets. You have to do it as a joint effort, and not as a top-down. Top-down doesn't work. So it's really, especially on something which is that new, we have to be very humble that there are things that not everybody understand, but we have to agree on what are the main objectives. So I'd say, working global, regional, local, very closely. We have, especially with the emerging markets region for us, which is LATAM, MENA, Africa, Southeast Asia. Given the maturity of this market on this era, obviously they are the ones that are leading the transformation, because this is very much where it's happening, and Europe is following, and because it's really following what the behavior of the users. Yeah. So we try, main one is this, and I think also we tend to, it goes so fast that we tend to wait a long time before we share things between us. And in fact, we need to be a bit more agile, a bit more, okay, even if it's not perfect, let's share those little bit of insight, because that could be something we can adjust. Otherwise, we end up of waiting too long and say, oh, we could have done this differently if only we knew this. And there is so much, as marketers, this idea of we need to be confident with the data, we need to be, and sometimes simple insight, simple conversation with agencies, local team is helping.
Yep. And then what about from creators? I think that listening, that feedback loop, what we can learn from creators about where culture is going, but also about our own products, how people are using them. Can you talk about some of the learnings you've had there?
Yeah, I think for sure there's a couple of things. I think one is learning from feedback from the creators. We're still very young in this sense, is that because we've been rolling out, let's say, the journey, we haven't really unified yet what is the communication style with the creators, but it's definitely coming. But we also have a bit of a history of listening to the creators, what they actually post online, rather than just only having that direct relationship. Like, I don't think we have this creator academy, let's say, mindset yet. But we are getting there. But for now, like, there's a lot of really cool examples of how creators create trends with our products on how they use it for alternative ways. So, for example, like the comms team, so like Nicholas is here in the audience today, like they found a trend online where women were using micellar water to take care of their hair. And that's not the main objective, obviously, of micellar water is for face cleansing to remove makeup, but there's an alternative use of it. And learning to lean into that and live that moment has been a way of like having a feedback loop with creators. We have another historical example, which is Primer using our aftershave balm. For anyone who's a woman and wants to save money on primer, aftershave balm is very high on glycerin, so it helps to have your makeup stick to it and your foundation stick to it, and it's very, very cheap. So there's obviously like things.
Yeah. I love this idea of Creator Academy mindset. I'm going to borrow that one.
Yeah.
But I do think we can learn so much from the creator conversations and content that exists. It's like a focus group that's always on, that we don't have to organize, but we can always tap into. So I think that's something we can all strive for. I think we all understand the role and importance of a center of excellence in an organization like Beiersdorf, right? Multinational, multi-brand, very complex. What can you take or adapt for smaller, single brand, maybe multi-market, but what are the efforts or objectives of your teams that can apply more universally to brands at any phase of maturity or scale?
I'd say start quickly by defining what success looks like. So as soon as because otherwise you end up with different measurements. So measurement for me is the base that we need to agree on. And that's, you can apply it for small company and large. I did help some like much smaller company in the past on their influence. And now the first thing is, okay, how do we measure success? And also the very, very hard for big companies and much easier for smaller, which is a trial and fail logic, which is really, really helping. It's growing, it's better. Honestly, you have that. You do get now an understanding that you are allowed to fail, which is something that is not common, especially for European companies. That failing is like, oh, no, and in Germany even more so. So, and culturally speaking, it's shifting. But for any small, large brands, the test and learn part is key. Spend enough time. I think there are two things that we highlighted as part of the process, which are which are difficult. We are pain point. Number one is to choose the right creator, and it's heavily time consuming. So, once you find the right creator, I think you come back to that later on in today, but you need to ensure that then you maintain relationship on the longer run. And the retention of the creators is also a part of our success on ROI. The longer you work with the creator, they know the brand. You will get more for your money effectively. You have somebody you can trust, and you can easily brief. And you have less back and forth. So, to reduce that pain point, let's make sure that is once you find the right one, let's make sure you build it on the long term and not just for one-off. The second one that we find difficult is how do we validate the asset? Okay, because there's still some review to be done. And Nicholas is here in the room, is in the comms team looking after all the brand, and this is where his role is absolutely pivotal. Is how do we brief and what do we leave for as a freedom for creators, and what do we convey as message? Make sure that as soon as it's clear, it's very easy then to say yes or no. As soon as you are clear with what you want and you should not be too specific. It needs to be 30 seconds long and so on. As soon as you are clear in terms of the outcome, it's much easier to follow. So I think these two pain points, I think, are the hardest for me in setting up a campaign. And this is what I will share.
I think the point on creator retention is so important, and we have a lot of data on this, so if you're curious about this, please come find us or talk to somebody in the product lab, but I think your point is spot on. Creator retention is the single largest lever for sustained growth. We cannot fill leaky buckets, even in our own businesses, right? Like retention is always, customer retention is always the key priority, key KPI. And so creators operate the same way, like building long-term relationships increases lifetime value. It helps you grow your top line as you find new creators and build your community on an evergreen basis. So I think that point is spot on and often is overlooked when we're constantly chasing new. Any final words from you? Maybe how to enjoy the winter in northern Germany?
Oh, wow. Buy a coat.
Buy a coat.
That was like a month-long ordeal for me. No, like Hamburg is honestly, like if anyone ever wants to visit, Hamburg is a beautiful city, especially when the sun's out. So go after April. But no, it was really an amazing time, and I think also like headquarters meeting so many different minds and linking up with so many different people and having so many different functions all within one room. It was amazing. Even in the winter time, you found warmth in the people around you. So it was definitely a time I look back on very, very fondly. So
amazing. What's one thing that you're looking forward to as you enter kind of year 2 of Precision Influence in this effort that you're leading?
I think scale.
Yeah.
Scale like is the number one market and like a number one word. And I think what Antoine said, it doesn't matter at which level of scale now. It doesn't matter how many of the points markets pull up and how many parts of the region also pull up. But the point is just to pull up and keep going as fast as we can while making our learnings, while setting our foundation. But we gotta move.
I love it. It's a great place to end. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you both for sharing your experience and your wisdom. We just talked to eMarketer a few weeks ago, and they're terming 2025 the year of professionalization, and I think a lot of the themes that we talked about today really validate that, right? We're all growing up, we're putting these standards, these frameworks in place, and we are maturing our businesses around our creator programs. So thank you for sharing the way you're doing that at such, again, a fast pace at Beiersdorf.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.